safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban, a multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veterans services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who is interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees are 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.
Committee for October 24th. Do we have any public comment today? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion for the approval of October 10th?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Korndike, support by Commissioner Steck. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on to item 3, legislative update. Becky Butler, PAA.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, the legislature only has about 6 weeks until the end of the year.
Pull that mic to you.
Yeah,
I think everyone's happy with that.
Can't hear.
Can we make it two?
Might have been a better report. The legislature has about 6 weeks until the end of the year, and their legislative agenda continues to be pretty aggressive. So they're going to have to start to move a little quicker on some of these items. Clearly, the number one issue for the House of Representatives is auto no fault. And I know both Scott and I have been reporting on this issue for the year. They've had several committee hearings, lengthy committee hearings, as well as 2 afternoon caucuses by the House Republicans that have lasted at least a couple hours each. So they believe now that at least their caucus is up to speed as far as the major issues that are in this piece of legislation. The trick now is, as it always is can they identify enough votes to pass it off the House floor? They do have enough votes to get it out of committee. Speaker Leonard is allowing the mayor, Mike Duggan of Detroit, some time to get some Democratic support. Speaker Leonard's been very clear that the only way this bill passes is with bipartisan support, because he does not have enough Republicans to move this without them. Right now, he probably has 2 or 3 Democrats at most, so he probably has 43 Republicans. So it appears to be still at a stalemate. We're not there yet. But he's going to continue to drive this as his major priority. The rumor is he also may just put that bill up on the floor for a vote and leave it up there as long as 2 and 3 days. We've seen that happen probably 6-8 years ago. That's been a long time since that has happened. But those are all rumors. We still don't know whether that's going to come to fruition, but that is the focal point of the House of Representatives dealing with auto no fault. That is a priority of the Speaker. He campaigned on that to be the Speaker of the House, and so he will continue to work on that. In the Senate, they don't have any significant issues that they're working on. They're waiting to see what the House does on auto no fault. I would anticipate that on the bigger issues, the Senate will do something with lessening the restrictions on residents for guns. The House has sent them a myriad of legislation reducing restrictions on gun ownership, anywhere from permitless gun ownership to where you can have a concealed weapon. We believe that the Senate probably either this week or next week is going to act on something, probably allowing concealed weapons and opening up where you can carry those concealed weapons. It's something that has been passed before. Senator Mike Green passed this bill I think 4 years ago. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy nationwide, and so the governor did veto that legislation, but that bill is back. It would allow an individual to carry a concealed weapon in hospitals, universities, other public settings. That is very problematic to our governor. He has not supported the relaxed regulations of guns, so that's going to be an issue I think the Senate will have to have with this governor as far as what we do with allowing guns throughout the state. There's also some significant issues that are happening that could affect the county, and actually we have 3 committees that I think are very specific. We've been watching some TIFA DDA legislation, and the Senate Economic Development is going to be hearing that bill in the committee this week. It's not the overall comprehensive bill I think that we had hoped that MAC was working on. In talking with them, they're still looking for a bill sponsor. We're going to help them help identify perhaps a bill sponsor that could be a more comprehensive approach, but right now we do have that one piece of legislation. It does have the transparency piece of it, which would allow more data so that we can get more information, more reporting mechanisms, but that's really the only piece that the Senate is interested in moving at this time. Also in the House local government, as we've anticipated, they're going to start conversations dealing with OPEB and pension reform on the local level. We have been anticipating this issue. It's something that is also a priority and part of the work plan for the House of Representatives. We've had a few conversations with Representative Tom Elbert, who's part of our delegation. He is on the small work group within the House of Representatives. He feels confident that this 4-bill package should not have a negative impact on the county, the way that they are putting it together. There's always unintended consequences, so as soon as that package is introduced, we'll make sure that we get that to you for your review. We understand that part of this package may include some type of revenue sharing implications. What Representative Hewlin, who's working on this, would like to put in statute as many safeguards as possible so that counties are assured the appropriate revenue sharing as much as they can, since it is a budget issue. But I think we might see that piece come along with the OPEB. That's a great combination, and the fact that when you are putting together pieces that could have an effect on counties, you also have some positives for them. And so I think they're trying to put that together as an entire package. We don't have any details on that, but that's just verbally what we have been told they're going to be working on. We would anticipate that I think legislation will be introduced, I think, within the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're starting the committee hearings. We will follow those closely. There's also in House Communications a 3-bill package that could and will have an impact on counties. We're not certain the implication it will have on Kent County. Part of the House Republican work plan is expanding rural broadband throughout the state of Michigan, and they believe there's some impediments to doing that. So they introduced a 3-bill package limiting the permit fees that local units of government, specifically counties, road commissions, and drain commissions, are able to provide and assess to these the rural broadband organizations, companies. So if you're a drain commissioner, they're limiting the amount of fees that you can offer to, you can provide. They're limiting the fees that the road commission can assess to that on right-of-ways. If you're asked to move your infrastructure because of a right-of-way, they're limiting those fees, I believe, to $1,000. They're also requiring that a one-year notice. If a local unit of government is planning to do a major infrastructure reassessing, that they give a one-year assessment so that these small companies have time to plan and provide for those. Now, these three bills will come under extreme opposition. I'm sure that the County Road Commission Association will be adamantly opposed to this, as some counties will as well. This is really geared towards some of the smaller rural counties up north. It is not intended to impact Kent, Oakland, Wayne, Macomb. Matter of fact, there is conversation and amendments floating that would actually carve out the 5 biggest counties. It's not something that has been offered yet, but it is a conversation piece because they're feared that the impact on those 5 counties could actually kill the legislation. Those are the impacts that we're having over the next couple of weeks. There are quite a few pieces of legislation that we're going to need to watch closely. There's also a mental health delegation, a bipartisan group of legislators that have been working on a proposal, and I believe that they've just come to a conclusion. They do have recommendations. They have not made them public, but we believe that some of those could actually have an impact on some of our goals and objectives. One of the things that we have always had as a priority is getting significant reimbursement for our jails when it comes to inmates that need medical expenses. And part of that proposal is allowing, or can we allow Medicaid to come in and provide some of those expenses. That will be one of their priorities and recommendations. We do believe that that will be put into a legislative package. It's a priority of the Speaker as well. That's one of his 2 priorities, mental health as it relates to our jail system and prison system. So I think that is a good sign. We're going to try to get a complete list of those recommendations to you, hopefully by the end of the week, so you can review those. But it sounds like there are some positive outcomes from that work group as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions for Becky today? Commissioner Bukowski.
Sure. Thank you for a lot of information. Circling back around to the first, when it comes to auto no fault, you did a good job explaining kind of the horse race, but who are the horses and what are the proposals? Is there still this mythical unicorn of rate reduction and everyone's going to get better service, and what really is the proposal, and who's for and against it other than the Speaker and Mayor Duggan?
Well, the coalition as far as leadership politically is the Mayor Mike Duggan and Speaker Tom Leonard. They also have the insurance company that is siding with them. The proposal does offer a rate rollback. It also allows choice. So for PIP coverage, you will have a choice of $250,000, $500,000, or unlimited, what we currently have. It would offer some, I believe, rate relief to especially Detroit. I think the mayor, when he is talking with legislators, talks about the fact that there are some individuals that I think he relates to his son who gets a $5,000 a year auto policy. This would probably make it $4,000, $3,500. We have a State Farm agent here, so I'm careful how I'm describing this. But the issue really is between the insurance companies and the healthcare providers. Those are the 2 entities on different sides. And then in between that, you have the legislature that is still trying to figure out where they are on this issue. And that's why I think you see so many caucus meetings, that it's giving both sides the chance, the opportunity to present their side of the story to the caucus so that they can be educated and take a view. This is a very complicated issue. It has other pieces, attendant care, attached to it, so it's trying to bring everybody up to speed on that issue. So politically, it depends on what side of the issue, whether you think this is a good proposal or whether you think it is a bad proposal. And I think as people start to read the proposal, it's very complicated. It has some pieces in there that for Republicans are a little troubling at this moment, but it's a work in progress. Part of the complication is the Senate Majority Leader has indicated that he doesn't support that proposal, does not see it as a solution to the problem. And so that is also causing pause. Why would you vote for it if the Senate's not going to vote for it? So there's still a lot of work to be done. I think everybody is saying that there's a solution somewhere here. It's just not this proposal.
But if what has the Senate Majority Leader said other than the rate rollback that he doesn't like?
There's some fee structures that are in this legislation that he does not support a fee structure or the rate rollback at this point. He did last session move his version of auto no fault through the Senate and over to the House, and it was not taken up. So we have a case of two different versions.
And then last follow-up, when people have the conversation, do people make the historical note that when the voters of the state have had the opportunity to talk about auto no fault, we continue to say, yes, we like it, and we know it's expensive, but we like it?
That has been part of the dialogue with some individuals. I mean, you have to understand there are many, many individuals, associations that are involved in this, so their talking points are different depending on what angle you're coming from. But that has been brought to the attention that the voters have voted on this before statewide.
Yeah, I mean, just whatever it's worth, since I have various conflicts and what have you. Disability Advocates was a founding member of the Coalition to Protect Auto No Fault. Yeah, because unfortunately in this, how are we taking care of our family, friends, and neighbors within reason of cost? But of course, under those air quotes is where the unicorn lies. So anyways, thank you, and keep having fun with it.
Commissioner Thorndike.
So in your opinion, Becky, is there any chance that something comes next year if this fails? Like the compromise that was worked out in lame duck of 16 that both the medical providers and the insurance companies agreed on, so we can actually do something to have some sort of control of the rates into the future?
I do believe that there is a possibility of some type of compromise agreement. Whether the legislative leaders are going to be put in a space where they can make that happen is still yet to be determined. We have two leaders that I think are struggling to get along with one another on various issues. So that certainly is a possibility, because I think both sides believe that there is a compromise out there, that it's just putting those right pieces together. There are several pieces of this puzzle that everybody can agree on, and when it comes to attendant care, I don't think there's anybody in opposition to those.
Or a fraud authority.
Absolutely, a fraud authority and attendant
25
care.
years trying to push something that just makes so much sense.
Absolutely. And there are legislators that would like to split off these pieces so that you could have two wins, because there's no opposition to attendant care, to a fraud authority. Let's move those pieces along and continue to dialogue on that final third piece. The Speaker of the House is not there yet on those pieces, but we have tried to separate those. Representative Ben Fredericks has introduced legislation. He's trying to separate those. So I think there are individuals within these caucus that see the value in that and would like to do that. It's just the timing and the will of the leaders to get that to the finish line.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs.
On to another topic. I know that there's some bipartisan legislation out there about raise the age for juveniles and adults as far as sentencing goes. And what do you know about that? Where's that at? What are its
Well, that is a priority for the commission, and it's something that we are seeking to work on. We've had conversations with Senator Prose. I've gone back to Senator Rick Jones, who's chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's a conversation that we had last year with him. He supported our concepts of the raise the age. Part of the problem is that the legislation that was proposed, I think 3 years ago, was so problematic in the eyes of the legislature that when you bring up this issue again, they tend to resist wanting to get into that. There is a study that is due to talk, that was a result of that legislation that they are waiting on, and I think that's kind of what may be holding it up, is that study. You know, everybody's waiting on a study.
Wasn't that study due in October?
I don't think it's been released yet.
Right.
But I think that's what they're waiting on, to see what the implications could be. But that is something that I think that we should aggressively try to pursue this fall and next year, is to get that moving.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning.
So the reference to the study on behavioral health, is that the Representative Halpel task force that you're talking about?
Yes, he's part of that.
Yeah.
It's a bipartisan approach, and I know they have recommendations. I'll try to get those to you this week.
Okay, so I can't get any insight out of those folks. Any idea where, other than dealing with the prison service, Why is this so secretive?
I think that the problem is that the task force is so large that the idea of that being secretive will last probably 48 hours. So we're pretty confident that we can get those recommendations. It's a pretty comprehensive list of recommendations, several pages, that they want to put into legislation. But I don't have it, but I think I can get it to you today.
Okay, okay. Then one other quick question. Senator Hildebrand's legislation or bill with respect to equal distribution of district millages, where does that stand?
It passed the Senate this last week, and it is now in the House Education Committee. There is a committee hearing on it this week. Representative Tim Kelly is holding the first hearing on that. He is uncertain whether he has the votes in committee, but it is up for conversation this week.
Which bill is that?
It's the bill to provide distribution of when you have a district-wide millage.
Well, the ISD millage.
Yeah, that would be allocated as well to the charter schools.
All right, any other questions for Becky? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for coming in the rain, and appreciate the update.
Yeah. Is anybody, I mean, like, since we're talking about OPEB, I have one question, I'm sorry, Chair.
Sure.
Recognize. You know, if the charter schools want a piece of the ISD millage, which all sounds good, but if we're looking at OPEB liability, which goes back before 1994, are the charter schools being assessed a portion of that liability? Or are the charter schools scot-free when it comes to, again, fair is fair, so how is the state taking care of, at least pre-1994, if not since 94, when, again, school districts are left whatever, and I don't know how it's going to impact us as a county, but it impacts our citizenry. So I'm just gonna say I doubt that the charter schools are asking for a slice of the OPEB liability.
I don't have an answer for that.
All right, thank you.
Can we engage in this later? But I would love to discuss that with you.
Sure. Sure, I would.
Thanks, Becky, appreciate it. All right, on to item 4, Parks Department, Performance Measurement 5-minute update. Roger, it's fine.
Good morning. Since this is a 5-minute update, I'm going to concentrate on significant accomplishments in the last year. First and foremost was the opening of the meadows, which actually included the completion of the meadows. We had a donor late last year wanting to do the wetland project, which is pretty much what you see underneath the boardwalk at the meadows. And that was started last year, completed this spring. The opening of the meadows has done everything we wanted for Millennium in terms of getting large groups out of the recreation core and allowing that to be more of the family picnic type area. And so we can accommodate the large groups better. And we used to limit the season of large groups at the recreation core for doing 5K walks and that type of thing. And now we can have that all season long. The boating center at Millennium, it boggles my mind, but we do over 9,000 rentals there a year in a season, which is amazing to me. Other projects, the M6 trail, which is the completion of that trail, which is another bridge similar to the one that's over Division. That's in the works. It'll be finished in the spring. We're dealing with Fed Highway, and that just has been taking a lot of time to get permits. The same is true for the Pioneer Trail, working with Fed Highway, and part of the trail is within their right-of-way of the interstate. And while we have done it before and we get the permits, new people are in place, so we start the process all over again with Fed Highway. We dedicated completed dedicated 900-foot boardwalk at Pickerel Lake, and as part of that, we hosted the DNR Trust Fund Board at the dedication and also included them in a tour of Kent County projects. They are the folks, the organization that supplies park systems with, in our case, millions of dollars. So it was good to be their host for their June meeting. And we also had a interesting collaboration with Caledonia Township. When you apply for grants to the Trust Fund Board, you're good to get one. You won't get two in the same season. So there was some land available at Caledonia Lakeside Park, North End, 18 acres, which we wanted, but we already were submitting a grant for that year. So we actually wrote the grant on behalf of Caledonia Township, and they got the grant, they did the deal. We have a management agreement with them, so we'll manage our land, and they also got about 6 acres of land for their village green. And then last but not least, to recognize the northern townships. A lot of times, we ask for partnerships, and Nelson Township has been a steady Eddie partner with Kent County Parks and helping to improve Gordon Park. And so this summer they used some of their funds to help us. We created a handicap accessible concrete pad and walkway. Gordon Park tends to be a pretty soggy park, and so this allows full accessibility to a picnic area, and that's worked out very well for everybody. I'll give 1 minute to IT.
All right. Any questions for Roger today? Commissioner Bonk?
Thank you, Chair. On that 7,500 acres for a goal,
Yeah.
where are we at on that?
We're right around 7,000 acres.
Pardon me?
Right around 7,000.
Oh, so we're not that far away?
We're not that far away.
So is that goal too low?
Well, I think if you reach a goal, you don't necessarily just stop there. I think one of the things we really need to do is look at the type of acres we have too, because as a county park system, we should have regional parks, which is defined as 200 acres or more. We shouldn't necessarily have a 3-acre park in the system. A lot of county park systems don't have that. That's the way we evolved. There's no reason to get rid of a 3-acre park, but we really ought to look at taking some parks that we have that have land adjacent to them and making them 200 plus acres.
And you had some goals here of, you'd like to do 4 or 5 projects of $100,000 or more. You mentioned here in your goals, and what would that be? What would that look like? You like to use outside money for that?
We rely on outside money, and whether it's boardwalk or land improvements, private money, donor money, grant money. That's how we get our projects done. So in some cases, it's like Lydell Park. We're doing some habitat improvement, which is a significant project that'll be going on for years as we remove concrete retaining walls and naturalize the creek area.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs?
2 things, and it's too bad our friends from PAA have left, but there is another Hildebrand bill up, which looks at how the size of the financial basket is for the Natural Resources Trust Fund. I don't know what its chances are, but obviously it has a powerful sponsor in our local state senator. My guess is that follows off of a little bit of Senator Boer's frustrations at the last time on joint capital outlay. In short, there's a fairly decent chance that there's going to be more money coming out of the Natural Resources Trust Fund, and I would suggest that we be prepared to take advantage of some of those. This is a budgetary issue, but it's an issue that we should be seriously thinking about, that for at least the next couple of years, it's possible that instead of the amount of money being picked by the board, it would be picked by a committee made up the governor, the leaders, representative, the speaker's representative, and I think what they want to do is take some of that large fund balance in the trust fund and spend it on some parks. So my guess is that there's going to be a lot more applications that are approved for funding, and I think we should be thinking about how we can make sure that we don't miss the boat on that funding. Secondly, I can't help but comment that in the overview here, it talks about that our emphasis is on land acquisition and expanding parks, particularly where population growth is set to increase and in underserved areas of the county. The Grand Rapids mayor just put out some data on the I guess park deserts in Grand Rapids. One of those is in the area of Grand Rapids that I represent, and I do think that we need to take some serious thought about park distribution fairness in this county. We have a lot of parks, we have all of our parks out in the townships. Some of these 3-acre parks that you mentioned, I think, are de facto township parks, that we are building neighborhood parks in places and not in others. And that instead of buying land around these parks to turn them from 3 acres to 200 acres without a great reason to do that, instead I think some of that money could be better spent making sure that the tax dollars that the people of cities pay into the general fund, which goes into the Parks and Rec Department, actually have some of that money returned to them and parks that they can walk to.
All right. Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair. Just to kind of piggyback on that, as you accrue more land, which, I mean, I'm all about parks and getting out into nature. I think that's part of the charm of northern Michigan. Let's face it, if we're all fortunate enough to have a chance to go up there, that's part of why we like it. How do you balance that, though, with the upkeep of the parks that we already have? Because I do hear from time to time, when I went to this park, and it was so muddy, as you had said. And some of that's just Michigan. I understand that, but it looks like it needs fresh gravel, and there hasn't been fresh gravel on the parkway or the pathway for a really long time. And maybe this is not the appropriate place for me to be asking this question. I should ask you that outside of this, but. Where do you make the allegations that, all right, as we get more, we're making sure, though, that what we have, we're taking care of?
So acquisition is usually a one-shot.
Okay.
You know, and it really doesn't cost us much, if anything, to hold the land. So it's once we start to develop the land, there's the cost of the development, then there's the cost of the upkeep. But just like the commissioners back in the 1920s and 30s acquired the land for Johnson and Townsend and Fallsburg, which were all-day drives to get from Grand Rapids out to Fallsburg, and there weren't a lot of people out there. That was the core of our system for decades. So right now with the acquisition we're doing, we are developing some of it, and we're also setting the stage for their generations to come.
Okay. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
I don't mean to be a contrarian to my fellow colleague, Commissioner Skaggs, but I think that your largest park is actually within the city limits of Walker or Grand Rapids. With Millennium Park.
Millennium Park is the largest park. Each section we own of Millennium sits in 4 municipalities. Grand Rapids is one of them. It's the second largest parkland holding. That portion is the second largest piece of parkland within the city of Grand Rapids, what we own as part of Millennium. And it's the largest in Walker, it's the largest in Granville, and it's the largest in Wyoming.
And it's very successful. I was there for the Parks Foundation, and I'm just amazed every time at what a beautiful facility you have there. A couple of things, though, that maybe as a product of the success of Millennium Park, I hear more about folks attempting to tie into the bike system, the trail system in Millennium Park. I know that there are points of access, but folks do tend to kind of access it wherever the trail kind of gets close to the road, which means we see bikers on the side of Butterworth Avenue a fair amount, which is not a very good street for bikers to be on. Is that an issue that you've looked at? Is there a solution to how we can control that access so these folks aren't using Butterworth to do that?
I wouldn't use Butterworth. I mean, all you need to do is think.
But they do it, and I think
I guess short of building a new trail, which doesn't make any sense for Millennium, the next answer to that would be to pave shoulders for bikers to at least move them to the edge of Butterworth. Butterworth is a different street on the weekend than it is during the weekday. It has heavy truck traffic during the week, and but that changes to busier car traffic for people who are going to and from Millennium. I think the trail plan that we have in place is good. People have to make their own decisions. We tie directly into the Walker system, and we tie directly into the City of Grand Rapids system.
Okay. I wish I had a better answer. I'm not blaming you at all. It's just, it just isn't an easy solution for that issue. I know that.
So, I don't see a lot of I see some bikers, and I go back and forth all the time, so I don't see a lot of bikers.
Well, there are the road bikers that aren't going to use the trails.
They won't use the trail anyways. They won't use the shoulder.
Right. They'll just fight the trucks.
There you go.
All right, any more questions for Roger today? Seeing none, thank you, Roger, so much. Appreciate your time and efforts. On to item 5, Information Technology Performance Measurement Review. Craig Paul.
Good. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Craig Paul. I'm the IT director for the county, and appreciate your time this morning to go through our performance measurement update. Same format that you've seen from others this year, so we'll just get right into it. In terms of priority alignment, really the 3 board priorities that IT aligns with are efficient use of resources, citizen participation, and proactive and innovative government. Because we really are, so the thing that we strive to do from the technology perspective is support everybody else that is citizen facing in terms of enabling them to deliver the services more efficiently. In terms of goals and metrics, we'll run through some of those for you. A selected few, of course, you have the full packet, or all the measures there in your packet. The first is provide an attractive, easy-to-use portal that assists citizens and other interested parties. That, of course, is the Access Kent website. You notice this is the new version that came out earlier this year. We're quite happy with that. I think it does a great job of representing the county and the services it provides to the citizens. So our objective is to increase traffic to the site by at least 5% annually. We've been struggling a bit with that. We're hoping that the revised site will provide some more impetus, and as well we continue to look at the services that we offer to expand those and to make the county easier to do business with. Next, I want to take a look at kind of more an internally focused one. We're always looking to continually improve our response to those who are having trouble or they require something else from IT than what they have today. One of the ways we do this, we conduct an annual IT survey. That's coming up pretty rapidly. Usually run it in about 3 weeks or so in November. And send an email to every county employee and say, how are we doing? And we get collect that information. Traditionally, we've gotten a pretty good response rate of about 20%. And we direct a lot of what we do based on those survey results. So one of the things we look at is how are we responsive? When people call us, are we getting back to them? Are we doing the kinds of things they need in the time they need it? We seem to be doing pretty well. Our goal is to stay at 4.2. Our scale is 1 to 5. We also have, as part of our services, what we call the SLA, the Service Level Agreement, where we say, okay, we're going to deliver. When you contact us, you can expect us to get back to you and do whatever it is you've requested within X period of time. Those time frames are all defined. Our goal is to meet or exceed that 90% of the time. We use 90% because we recognize that there are the exceptions that come up, the things that, okay, it doesn't fit the time frame, so we use 90% as the goal, and we're holding pretty well on that. We also do a lot of work in terms of implementing new applications that people bring to us, and then implement it and then integrate it with the other applications that we have around the county. Again, from the survey, we take a look at how are we doing in terms of responsiveness. We exceeded our goal of 4.2 back in 2015, slipped a bit in 2016, but we hope again to be back there at this year. And also then, what's our quality of service? So not only are we doing the right things, how are we doing them in terms of delivery? We again, 2015 seemed to be a really good year. We slid back a bit last year. One of the things then we talk about here is our infrastructure, because at the core, everything we really do, there's people who provide the services, but we need a computing infrastructure that's robust and stable to be able to actually deliver all those services. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that the equipment is available 99.9% of the time. We beat that in 2014. We're hope this year to again exceed it. Decrease the number of unplanned service outages. While we've spent a fair amount of time and effort trying to get things redundant, trying to make sure that we can survive incidents, there are still things that happen where service is disrupted. Our goal is to drive those down so that people can get their jobs done, because if the infrastructure isn't available, lots of people can't work. Obviously, that's not good. Turning to significant challenges for IT, right now we've had a higher than normal workload the last couple of years. Part of that is due to the financial management system project. Part of it is due to the need to relocate one of our data centers. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Because the economy is turning around, we're having some difficulty filling open positions. IT people are fairly fungible in that you can, the kinds of IT people we have at the county can do the same kind of work for anybody. So we're in competition with the private sector to fill our positions, and that can be a challenge on occasion. We're facing rapidly increasing demands for storage and mobility. Those great cameras that everybody gets as part of their smartphones that sit there and take those pictures and ever-increasing resolutions take up a lot of storage space, as well as the fact we're investing heavily in document management with our on-base document repository so that we manage documents electronically rather than in paper. All that consumes storage space, and that's driving our rate of consumption up above kind of the rates of consumption of other services. Having said that it is rapidly increasing, we're not alone. It's a common industry trend. Everybody's storage needs are increasing pretty rapidly. Another challenge is that the rate of technology change is so fast that we're having trouble keeping up with it. The technology vendors are introducing new software applications, new devices, new you name it, and they continue to churn that marketplace. Some of it is their attempt, of course, to establish a competitive beachhead, but then we have to take a look at all those, evaluate them, understand them, and then be able to sit there and say which of these make sense for us to deliver to the employees to use for delivering services, and that gets to be fairly daunting. This is all complicated by the last challenge, which you hear a lot about. I'll just mention Equifax and then stop right there. Cybersecurity is a huge deal. It's getting harder. The bad folks are getting smarter. There's a lot more of them than there are of us. And we have to be good all the time. They only have to be lucky once. So that's just a challenge. And again, we're not alone. It's a challenge shared by everybody. Significant accomplishments. I mentioned our relocating our secondary data center. This picture is an attempt to indicate why. You'll notice kind of on the left there's a red circle. The second data center was at juvenile detention. That second circle around that crane, that's rough, not the crane, but I'm not even sure what that is exactly, but that big yellow thing there is where our second data center used to be. And we thought we were going to be able to keep it in place as part of the juvenile detention reconstruction effort. It turned out that wasn't feasible. We didn't find out about that for a while. We were going along thinking everything was going to be good and we weren't going to be disrupted, and then we got a surprise. So secondary data center got moved to 1565 Cedar. And now, frankly, working with facilities management, and those folks were just awesome. We now have actually a better facility than what we had before. So that all worked out quite well, but did represent a significant amount of work in a fairly compressed time frame. And we managed to do it by and large without disrupting services. We improved our two-factor authentication. Some of you may have been exposed to that with various accounts where they say, okay, we're going to send you a text, okay, you log in and then we'll send you a text message and then you key in whatever number the text message is. We used to use these little tokens you carried around on a keychain. We have since gone the text message route ourselves. This two-factor authentication is one of the things you use to try and enhance your security standing. So very important, particularly given the sensitivity of some of the information we manage. We also replaced our service desk tracking application. I mentioned, we do track and look at the SLAs. Everything that we do actually initiates as a ticket in the system. This gives us better tools to monitor and also has offered a better experience for the users. The other one, you could enter a ticket in it, but it was a little, it was a little clumsy. This interface is much nicer for the employees. We also accept tickets. You can call us and you can email us. So we've got a variety of ways of saying I need some help or I need something different. Key collaborations. I did mention cybersecurity. The good news is we're not in this alone. We are members. We work with a large number of folks to help us enhance our security posture, and we share information. So we work with, again, the state of Michigan. We're members of the West Michigan Cybersecurity Consortium. We work with some of the local universities, and obviously the state. So and again, considerable amount of focus is put on cybersecurity. The FMS project, you've heard of this before. Working with the Michigan Municipal Services Authority, we've partnered with City of Grand Rapids and with Genesee County to implement the Advantage 360 application, which is financials, budgeting, HR, and payroll. We're through the financials and the budget component. We're still working our way through HR and payroll. But again, and Grand Rapids has everything implemented. Genesee County has, I believe, financials implemented and not the other modules. And finally, on collaborations, Kent County acts as a hub for connectivity to the county. The diagram there just shows everybody we're connected to. Typically, the core partners are connected via fiber, and we have some other virtual private network connections and other types to support other communities. The primary reason for this is actually law enforcement. We hub, so the Sheriff's Department is responsible for law enforcement information here in the county. We provide the connection for them to the state, and then all the other communities ride our connection to the state. And we actually have a very nice arrangement with the state. We're actually connected to the state because our IT building and the state of Michigan building are right next to each other. So we just have a direct connection into their data center that they have there, and then ride their network to Lansing, which works out extremely well for everybody and keeps our costs low. A few things to look forward to. The FMS implementation, again, financials was done last year. HR payroll, when I give these dates, by the way, these are still fluid, so don't necessarily hold me to it specifically. Roughly around the year end this year. One of the big things, we're actually giving something up. We agreed once the airport transitioned to an independent authority last year that IT would continue to provide support services through the end of this calendar year. So we're in the process of transitioning over. The airport has hired 2 employees that are using some outside managed services right now, and we're working with those folks to basically transition everything that we do over to them. So the last day we're on the job is December 31st. And January 1st, they're on their own, which I'm confident that'll be fine. We're replacing the geo management system for our good friends at the Sheriff's Department. That's probably the most technically challenging application we support because it has real-time interactions with any number of things, fingerprints and mug shots and the commissary system, things like that, all happen in real time, so that's fairly daunting. That's looking year-end early next year. We are trying to update and replace. Right now we have fax machines all over the place. We want to replace those and have a centralized fax system. That project is going to start in this fourth quarter. That'll be department by department because everybody uses, as we've come to learn, everybody uses fax differently. And so we're going to go through and say, okay, the system we're replacing it with is extremely flexible, but we want to sit there and understand what their needs are, and then we'll implement. We have to replace our voicemail system next year. That's going end of support. So that's going to be sometime in the middle of 2018. And then our friends at Microsoft have blessed us with a new, actually it's not very new anymore, the Windows 10 operating system, and we're beginning our migration to Windows 10 from our standard of Windows 7. And we're doing that largely by replacement. As PCs are getting replaced, we're starting to buy PCs with Windows 10 rather than Windows 7. The other thing I just thought I'd venture a little further down the road. Based on our experience with having to move a data center, which was not a whole lot of fun, one of the strategies that we're going to embrace in IT is looking to migrate to a zero footprint and essentially eliminate data centers. This is a long-term goal. This is not going to happen immediately, but will involve starting to use more and more cloud-based services and possibly some co-location. So we may still continue to own equipment, but have it someplace else. That frees up some floor space, frees up our need to necessarily manage all the equipment. And then as things may move around in the future, then at least the central IT component would be less subject to any kind of disruption as other things change here at the county. But making sure that we still continue to provide the same level of services and redundancy as we do today. And with that, I'll give Parks their minute back. And ask if there are any questions.
All right, Commissioner Breve.
Thank you, Chair. Couple questions. So you just mentioned, a zero footprint for data center. How much space do you think that would leave the county? And, down the road, you're talking about possibly moving our data storage outside, maybe a local company. But what sort of space does that take up now, and what do we have to work with down the road?
I don't actually know the floor space we consume today. I can find that out and get back to you with that. It won't eliminate space completely because we'll still have the network components that will have to remain. But typically, you can do that in almost a closet-sized space as opposed to the larger space that we consume today. And typically, that equipment doesn't require quite as much environmental conditioning as what the servers do. So, but I'll find out about floor space and let you know.
Yeah, just as we're thinking of going down the road, what do we have available? Another question, what role does the department play in digitizing items for like the health department, all of the other county departments? What sort of role
well, it's fairly extensive, but it does vary by department. Again, we've chosen a document management system. It's called OnBase, and we continue to roll that out to departments over time as applications come up. We use it for majority of our financial records today. We've got we're working with Friend of the Court. I think Friend of the Court is probably one of our large success stories in terms of being able to actually reclaim floor space because we've digitized things. The other advantage that it gives us is the fact that everybody can access it now. In FOC, one of the challenges was who's got the file? Well, it could be on any one of several desks. Nobody was quite sure where it was. Now that really doesn't make any difference. The document comes in the door, it gets scanned, and it's automatically attached to the file. So everybody who's looking for the information gets it, and it's right now. We have a project on the books for the Drain Commission. We're working with 63rd District Court. We're working with Probate Court. We're working with 17th Circuit Court. So anybody who wants to come at the door, we're happy to have that conversation. Our constraint is basically the human resource, the number of people we have available. Although we've actually added a position, I think like 2 years ago, we converted one. We were going to eliminate it, and we actually ended up converting that position to support OnBase.
Sounds like you have a never-ending list of projects.
Well, every time we take one off, 2 or 3 seem to appear to take its place. Yes.
Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the update. My question is page 5 of your report talks about number of downloads, document downloads, and that's substantially decreased in the last couple of years. What is the reason for that, and do you think that trend will continue?
Actually, that's one of that is kind of a conundrum to us because the actual number of documents available is increasing. So we're not quite sure why.
People finding the information other places? Or?
We don't think so because most of it is fairly. Health department has forms out there, so we're not really sure why that's decreasing. We certainly we continue to increase the amount of information that's out there. So that one's on our. We're still scratching our heads about it because to us, if you're downloading, that indicates that you're finding what you want. When we did the site revamp this year, Actually, the navigation was simplified over what it was. So really expect that people can find what they're looking for fairly easily. And, the reality is that most people search, don't, even though we have a really good search engine within the site, the reality is most people sit there and get to where they're going via a search in something like Google.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ponstead.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. You had mentioned that you're having trouble finding hires and new employees in the IT sector. I've always read where government needs to be more like businesses. Public sector employees are overpaid, have all these perks that businesses don't. What are businesses doing to draw people away from us if we're have so much? I mean, why are they choosing to go into the business sector?
That's a really good question, and we spend a fair amount of time, trying to look at that. I think there's a couple of things. First, there may be an opinion that government people are overpaid, but at least in the technology sector, that's pretty clearly not the case. Technology salaries tend to run higher than what we pay. I think another factor is that, because we offer this, a holistic benefits package, particularly when you sit there and you look at pension. I think pensions are not very well understood by the younger folks that are growing up and starting to enter the workforce. They're looking for the 401ks. They're looking for the not for that defined benefit, but for the defined contribution type of retirement. So I don't think they necessarily value the pension properly. So I think that's a challenge. And then I think work environment may play into it, although we've introduced some changes in the past year to try and compete on that score, offering, we're doing some pilots in terms of telecommuting and flex work hours. So I think that those are all factors that contribute.
Thank you.
Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is more personal here. I just would like to point out that if in fact your department, being IT, finds that one of their significant challenges on page 5 is the rate of technology changes outpaces ability to maintain, hopefully you have a very kind understanding for those of us that are not IT, that it has outpaced some of us greatly. So when we call and we say, we have a little problem, you're very patient on the other end of the phone.
Well, one of the things that you run into is frankly, employee abilities to manage technology very considerably, and so we do try and be very conscious of that. The other thing that we've done this year specifically is we've added some technology training offering back to the employees. It was always available, but had to be paid for out of department budgets. There was actually some additional money put in the IT budget for this year for technology training, and we're partnering with New Horizons to make those courses available, and they can be so people can take them from their desks, and it's coming out of a pool of money that IT uses to fund that. So,
can you send that information out, please?
Sure.
Okay, and then just to follow up with that, I have a possible solution for your hire problem, cybersecurity. I have a young son who is still on the payroll at our house who is he's getting his master's in cybersecurity. So
okay.
Just hold out for a little bit longer.
We'll do that.
Any other questions for Craig today? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your excellent work on all of this. Near the weeds, you expressed concerns of the one drop, in the 1 to 5 scale, you drop 0.2 points. Like, how far do you have confidence you're going to go back up to the target of 4.2, But was that a systemic thing? Was that just an anomaly? I mean, is it just like a bad project can skew it all? I mean,
Well-
bad in the sense that you hit run and it's not your fault, it doesn't? You know, I mean, again, how much of this?
Well, we
Yeah.
pay, well, and that's a fair question to ask. We pay a lot of attention to this, but the reality is, and I've actually graphed this back now to the time we started the survey, I think back in 2006. We actually introduced this, so I've got the results kind of charted. And there is a cycle, and we go up and down kind of over a 3-year period. You'll see us go up, and then you'll see us taper off. And one anomaly in that was actually 2012. We replaced our email system in 2012, and and then we did the IT survey about 3 months after we replaced the email system. There was a pronounced drop that year because we'd messed with something that was near and dear to everybody's heart, and wasn't exactly unexpected. And then the other thing we do, there is room for comments, although the survey is set up to be anonymous. And then we go through and read all the comments and say, okay, are there trends in those comments as well? So the fact it drops, that can happen. I mean, our sample size is not so large that it's, you get that kind of variance anyway. But we still use it as a really useful barometer to say, how are we doing? And I think it's important for us to do that so that we don't lose sight of what it is we're charged to do. And lest I forget, and I did, I should also thank the staff I've got who are outstanding. IT's really, despite the fact we have challenges in finding them, the ones we've got are really, really good. And the stuff that we've been able to do is a reflection of their efforts. They do tremendous work.
Any other questions for Craig? I have a couple, if you don't mind. On the data and file digitization, I wanted to expand on the, Commissioner Breevy's question a little bit. Does it make sense for us to possibly look at outsourcing or subcontracting some of that to get it done so our internal staff isn't having to do it and we're not having departments wait in line to kind of get this stuff done? Have we looked at that at all, or those possibilities?
Certainly is a possibility. We have some money in the 2018 budget for some supplemental outside resources that we may be able to devote to that. We'll take a look at the overall project mix and figure out where the high priorities are and in terms of payback to the county, and we'll direct the resource there. So absolutely and in fact, we do work with an outside vendor. Sometimes the projects we're picking up get us into new areas of what OnBase can do that we haven't tapped before, and we'll typically bring in an outside resource to help us with those, with the object of, okay, we get the thing up and running faster, and then we pick up the skills to be able to do that work in the future.
Okay. And then kind of similar with cybersecurity, I think all of us want to be sure that our constituents' records are secure, and we deal with a lot of vital records and a lot of vital information. Again, does that make sense to maybe, because things are changing so much within this realm, does it make sense to maybe look at some outside vendors who may have higher thresholds of security, or so we're not constantly having to pay for that and constantly renew some of that? Have you guys looked at that at all?
We actually do outsource certain things already. We have two people in IT that are devoted to security. We have the Director of Information Technology Security, which is the common industry term is Chief Information Security Officer. And then we have a network security analyst. So those two are really driving point in terms of making sure that we're doing the right things. And we use a framework that was put together by folks here in the state of Michigan to guide our efforts in that. But there are some things, for instance, monitoring, because we run a 24/7 operation. The amount of information we generate in terms of running that is pretty significant. We don't have the resources to look at all that. That gets outsourced, and people who do this for a living run actually analyzers against it, looking for anomalies, and then if there's something they see that says, hey, that you need to investigate this, then we get notified, and then we start delving deeper into it to find out what's going on. So we do have a blend of internal and external resources already. So, we're actually quite fortunate. Most governments in local governments in Michigan don't have the kind of resources to put to it that we do, so we're quite fortunate.
That's good to know. Thank you, Craig, so much. Appreciate your time. All right, on to item 6, Department of Health and Human Services appointment. Wayman?
Sure. This is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appoint Bruce McCoy to the Department of Health and Human Services Board for a 3-year term of November 1, 2017 to October 31, 2020. Citizen interest in serving on the DHS board was solicited in August, September as a part of the annual solicitation of citizens' interest in serving on the various appointed bodies. The appointments subcommittees, consisting of Commissioners Mandy Bolter, Dave Volkowski, and Ted Vonk, reviewed the applications received, and Bruce McCoy is recommended for reappointment to the DHHS board.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Korndike, supported by Commissioner Brebe. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Bruce McCoy will be reappointed. Thank you so much. On to item 7, miscellaneous. Is there any commissioner miscellaneous today? Holy moly, none? All right, we are adjourned.